Today's news, BaekHyun says he doesn't know why people get depressed.
One of the members from the K-pop group EXO, BaekHyun, at a fan signing said some comments about depression have a lot of people upset. Not just Korean netizens, as people around the world upset about what he said. So let's get right into what his statement was. We've talked a lot, right? A lot of people say they're depressed. To be honest, if I'm speaking my thoughts, I don't know why people get depressed or have insomnia. I'm not criticizing it. I know you can't force yourself to only think good thoughts, but there are good people around you. You have friends, and you have me and the members. First off, who was he saying this to?
He was saying this to the fans at the fan signing because they just came out with their new song, Universe. So they've been doing some promo events for it. And I'm sure that a lot of people are asking about depression and want them to talk about it because of their fellow label mate, JongHyun, and his death.
There's so much I want to say. We only have a 10-minute approximate video length time to talk about depression. But I'm wondering if first, did somebody at SM prompt him to talk about depression? Or if he was asked, was he prepared to say what he said? Or did he just, off the top of his head, say this? Because it is a little insensitive.
But he is speaking his mind. And I do think that there's a lot of layers to kind of unpack through all of this, because sometimes when people are going through sadness and the grieving process, sometimes they say things that seem very insensitive, or they take actions that seem very insensitive. And so I feel personally like BaekHyun right now is just angry at depression. I feel that this is something that he is experiencing, and he's going through this, questioning things, being angry, because depression is a terrible illness. It's a mental illness.
For the record, SHINee was signed under SM, EXO was signed under SM. I'm sure BaekHyun and JongHyun knew each other well. I mean, I don't know to what extent their friendship was, like how intimate, but they definitely knew each other and spoke a lot to each other, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. The SM building's not that big. SHINee and EXO know each other.
And SHINee was helping EXO come up and become famous. They were like the older brothers, the oppas, and like, I said oppas, I meant Hyun's.
The thing is here, everyone, there are 7 billion people on the planet, and everyone, I mean everyone, including BaekHyun, have feelings of depression. Some people have depression more severe than others, but this is not something that, oh, you're not alone, you have depression. No, every single person feels depression. 100% of us. I think this is a misconception in itself.
Yeah, because it's an illness. It's a mental illness.
It's a normal emotion. I mean, It's not a good one. It doesn't feel good, but it isn't something that, oh, this group of people has depression and they're depressed, but this other group of people doesn't have it. No, this other group we're all one group when it comes to depression. It's just that some of us are isolated more than we'd like to be, and I think that's kind of one of the keys to depression, when you're not surrounded by a community of loved ones. I mean, this is kind of the difference between BaekHyun and what, I don't know, the average person who isn't famous might feel. I mean, he's surrounded by people all the time.
You can be extremely depressed and have very supportive people all around you and a very loving community, and that won't necessarily take away your depression, but it is an illness, and there are things that you can do to help it. And BaekHyun, clearly, this was something that he's looking at JongHyun, and he's like, I don't understand. I'm angry. He died. I'm angry at depression. Why are people depressed? You got loving people around you. He's still just going through the grieving process and wrapping his mind around this. This is what is going on. This is what I feel like for somebody who has gone through the grieving process, not for this situation, but this is what I am observing.
And this comment is only 11 days removed from JongHyun's death, so it is very, very fresh still.
And he's forced to process it very quickly, because already they're back on stage, they're back promoting, they gotta see people, they gotta talk to people, and everybody's trying to process it, trying to go through the grieving process, but also trying to keep moving on.
This might seem like a random coincidence, or I'm just saying this because we're talking about depression, but the last about 3 days, including on my birthday, which was 2 days ago, I've been feeling more depression emotions than normal. I mean, I just feel like there's winter and I haven't been able to get my exercise, but there's a lot of reasons why I'm feeling this way. And the moment that I come in contact with someone outside of you, I lose that feeling of depression a little bit. For example, I just got this tattoo on my birthday, and I was sitting next to a gentleman whose girlfriend was getting a tattoo, and he was in the waiting room, and he and I were talking when you had gone to the bathroom. So when you came out, I was already in chat with this stranger. This was a dude who had spent many years in prison and 3 years in solitary confinement. I mean, and he was my age. He was in his 40s, and just his eyes on me made me perk up a little. Like the fact that someone was showing me a little bit of attention before we even talked, a stranger no less. It wasn't that, oh, he said something nice to me. He was just showing me love by, hey, how you doing? Made my emotion of depression kind of diminish a little. I think if you look at humans historically, and you're gonna laugh at me for this, but I think this is informative for some people. They just don't understand that prior to agriculture, we ran in hunter-gatherer groups of 50 to 150, 200 people, and we were constantly surrounded by our peers. We helped each other, and everybody had to contribute to the group in order to survive, and everybody's self-worth was a little bit higher. These days, you can be isolated from people and not see people except for maybe on the internet for days at a time. This is a reason that people have higher levels of depression in society. One example, anyways, is on September 11th. So this is modern day society. Levels of depression went way down after September 11th because everybody came together as a community after 3,000 people died because they all felt like they had to contribute. And therefore, we all were loving each other more and seeing each other more than we usually would. And suicide went way down the months following September 11th. Things kind of go back to normal after 6 months to a year, and we live our isolated lives again. And this is why levels of depression in modern day society are higher.
Those are some very interesting thoughts. You went very broad spectrum.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out why BaekHyun, now the grieving is a lot of it probably, but why would he come out and say something that might cause a little bit of controversy? He's not feeling depression right now himself at the moment, so he's extrapolating his emotions out onto, well, why don't everybody else feel like me?
Well, a lot of people do that. That's human nature, is to extrapolate your emotions and your feelings and think that everybody should think or feel the same way as you. But one thing that I will say that I do kind of agree with him about is that having depressed feelings after something bad happening does not mean that you are going to get depressed. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have depression or insomnia, because those can be very serious diseases, as serious as cancer or any other terminal illness, as we have seen. But it could also be something that, depression can be kind of like a cold to some extent. Just because you experience a sad situation doesn't mean that you have depression, doesn't mean that you are seriously depressed. You can say, oh, I'm feeling depressed, but that does not mean that you have serious depression.
In trying to make the most sense of what BaekHyun said, I just feel like this is just a tiny clue into what his life is like and how different his life is versus most people who are listening to his music or just like him as a person or as a fan. It's challenging to be in the spotlight. It's even more challenging to be an idol and hold in all the things that you'd like to say. This is something that he wanted to say. This is how he actually feels. And I think it's just really, really difficult to relate with most people who aren't like you. I don't know how anyone else feels other than myself, but I do know that BaekHyun's quite different from most people, and I'm thinking that he gets a lot more human interaction than the average person, so that might help prop up some of his emotion more than the average person.
I'm glad that he is able to work through these things with the people around him and that he is not struggling with these feelings that are not going away.
He gets fans that come to fan meets by the thousands and show him love. Even if you're feeling depressed, that's going to boost your feeling a little bit. I mean, how could it not? I mean, unless you hate that sort of thing and you only like being alone, but that's not most humans.
Or it could make you feel more isolated because they don't actually necessarily know you besides this persona.
Comments, you guys. What are you saying about BaekHyun's comments? Insensitive, not? Click the like button. Thank you for supporting us here at Hallyuback. Click the bell for notifications. Check out the link to KGal. Don't forget to subscribe for more Hallyuback news. That's it. We're out of here. Hasta luego.
Bye.